Today I want to talk about what we call the diet revolution. You might be wondering, what the heck is this diet revolution? But today I'm going to talk about the 6 phases of what the diet revolution really is and what it takes to get to a point to where you're diet free. So Leanne Thompson and I have created these 6 phases and named them according to how the process should look in terms of the dieting process. A lot of us always think of, oh, I just want to diet down for a vacation or a competition or just to look good for the summer or maybe a challenge, and they only really think of the dieting process of dieting down, which is great. But the problem is, this is why 98% of us fail and gain all our weight back, is because we forget about the keeping the weight off forever part. We always gain all the weight back within 2 years, and it ends up being about 107%. So today we're gonna be turning the tables a little bit and shed some light on what that really looks like, because it does take a while to get to this point. And what it is that you'll hear this name kind of floating around social media, and that's intuitive eating. Leanne, in my opinion, and she didn't coin this name, but she really pushed it out there to the public a lot more of intuitive eating, because she developed the skills, and I didn't realize I developed the skill myself until she actually pointed it out, and I never really thought of it this way. So I give credit to Leanne for this. So first thing is, the first thing, or this isn't really a phase, but usually when people start dieting, they're kind of like, maybe they're miserable or unhappy about themselves. They just don't feel very good. You might be overeating, gaining weight, and you just can't figure out why, or maybe you're exercising a lot and you just don't know why you're not making progress. And it really comes down to your diet. That's the number one thing. And they say that abs are made in the kitchen. That's a true statement that I would say, in my opinion, purely my opinion, 80% of getting in shape is the diet and 20% is the training. Actually, if you want to put mindset in there, it's probably like 60 or 70% mindset, 20 or 30% of the nutrition part, and then a little bit part is the training. Obviously, it's consistency, but the mindset is the biggest thing. So get into that in another video. So the first thing is, so what we call the liftoff phase, and what it involves is basically tracking and understanding nutrition and what it really is and how your body responds. So getting and learning food labels, such an easy thing. People don't really know a lot about what food labels are, more in depth in the serving sizes and what it really looks like. So weigh and track your food. That makes a huge difference. So that usually is a short period of time where you're just getting familiar with foods. That could be up to 1 or 2 weeks or so. The second thing is developing the macro mentality. Okay, this is changing your mindset and realizing the role of what consistency is, and basically creating new habits. And a lot of people will say, oh yeah, I just want to create a new lifestyle change. I want to create this lifestyle to where I can do this forever. But really, they don't want that. They want like abs. They want to feel good, to look good. They want to do it for a certain way. They really don't want to truly do it for a lifestyle change. So just to be honest, but this does help you with creating that mentality of truly making it a lifestyle change. So by knowing your macronutrients, knowing how much food you're eating, just realizing that consistency is the key with all of this. That usually takes about 4 weeks or so, or up to a month. And this all depends on each person. So it's not the exact same for everybody, but usually it takes a few weeks for people to grind and get into that tracking mentality and also adjusting with a coach maybe. So the third phase is, and this is the longest phase, this is where a lot of people really want to gun it and go hard in this phase, because they get bored, they get tempted, there's too many things that go on. So what we call this the evolution phase. And what that looks like is, this is like the core of the entire thing. So this could be, depending on what your goal is, how much weight loss you need to lose, or how much weight you need to lose. This could be anywhere from like 2 or 3 months all the way up to 12 or 18 months, or maybe even longer. If you have to lose, a couple 100 pounds or 100 pounds or 200 pounds, whatever it is, that might take up to 2 years. Just know that that's going to take a while, okay? In order for you to get from to the beginning to the end, you have to go through this phase first. This is like the core and crux of everything. This is the dynamics of the program. This is where people get bored. They get tired of, they get to a point where they don't make progress, so they give up. They get tempted, they get, dig into temptation, they cheat, they overeat, because it just seems like, oh, I'm not getting my results, or I'm not reaching my goal yet. So I just say the heck with it and they just lost all the phases earlier to that, the macro mentality. That's where you have to keep the first two in line, especially the mentality part. You have to keep that intact the entire time while you're in the third phase. So that is the longest one and where people break down the most. So the fourth phase, this is the one that a lot of people just do not think about at all. And we call this the metabolic transition phase. What that is basically, you guys might have heard of reverse dieting or metabolic rebuilding. Joe Klemczewski kind of coined that. But this is basically a way to transition into like reversing or rebuilding your metabolic rate and learning to keep the weight off. I would say that this is the missing piece of all diets, in my opinion, and this is why we created this, because this is where a lot of people fall off. They'll reach their goal, and it's great, but then they forget about keeping the weight off. They learn, or they don't learn how to keep it off. So, for example, if we work with someone for 3 months, they reach their goal, they only think of the dieting down process. We always really stress the reverse process, and sometimes they forget that. And they just think, oh, I can do this myself. But if you're working with a coach, I recommend, highly recommend you work with somebody to help you through this phase, because it is the hardest part of the entire process, in my opinion. And we have found people to fail a lot in this part, because once you start eating food, you start eating more food, and you do it controllably. And I am an advocate of this, or not an advocate, but a victim, I should say. I've been through this myself, so this is why I talk about it this way. Is because once you start eating food, it's hard to control yourself and not overeat what you're supposed to be eating. So for example, like you'll be tracking your numbers all day long, hit your numbers, and then all of a sudden at night you just feel good and you're in this mode of like relaxation and your day has ended, so you just eat more. And so that can end up being a disaster, because you're like, well, I just started to ruin everything, I might as well just keep going. That's something you don't want to do. So this metabolic transition phase is basically rebuilding your metabolic rate and metabolism, and getting to a point to where you can eat more food, keep the weight down and off while increasing food. You want to do it, at a decent pace, or slowly or moderate, according to the person that you are that's doing it. Everyone's different. Nobody's the same. So there's different approaches to it. That's another video. But this is something that I want to stress, that you need to really take it seriously, and that you're not done dieting yet. So what that looks like, you're gradually increasing food slowly and eventually transitioning out of tracking and getting to the point of what we call phase 5, intuitive eating. Okay, intuitive eating, you cannot get to phase 5 with intuitive eating without conquering the rest of the phases prior. You cannot go from straight dieting all the way to intuitive eating. It just doesn't work, because you have to be able to create the skill and to master what you're doing in order for you to intuitively eat and be able to know more about nutrition, know more about your body, to understand the hunger cues that are happening in your body, and keeping structure and everything you're learning prior to is very important. So if you conquer that, you conquer intuitive eating, you get to the point where you are diet free, and that's where the magic really is. And a low percent of the population actually get to that point, but when they do, it's pretty darn cool. And we are conquering the odds with our coaching to be able to do that and make people diet free. So until next time, see you guys later.